being here. The date is Tuesday, November 29th, 2022. This is a regular meeting of the Kings County Board of Supervisors. We continue to deal with the health emergency, so the board is using the WebEx teleconferencing format for today's meeting if you're joining us virtually. We thank you whether you're joining us by way of the web or by the teleconferencing format. We thank you for your attendance virtually. We also have folks in the chambers, so we do have in-person attendance as well. And we want to thank you for being here. Those interested in commenting during unscheduled online, please use the raise your hand feature or be recognized by the clerk during public comment. Members of the audience, invite you to fill out speakers cards, and the clerk will call you up in the order that she has received those speaker card requests. Each vote today will be verbal or voice vote so that members of the public can hear how each board member has voted. After the item has been introduced and a motion and a second regarding each item, there'll be a roll call vote by district. We thank you for being here and being a part of this organization today. In order to establish a quorum, I'm going to ask the clerk to now please call the roll.
Joe Nevs.
Here.
Richard Valley.
Here.
Doug Verboon.
Here.
Craig Peterson.
Here.
Richard Fagundes.
Here. Let the record show all members present. Thank you very much for being here. Now, if I can invite everyone to please rise as we invite Pastor Arthur Fox of New Hope Orthodox Presbyterian Church to deliver the invocation and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning.
Thank you, sir. In days like we live in, wars, rumors of wars, economic distress, confusion, where do you look for help? Well, sometimes someone once wrote the words of the prophets are written on the subway walls, but we have it written on the wall of this chamber. And I pray we all remember that. But the psalmist in Psalm 121 is much more direct. I lift up my eyes to the hills, from where does my help come? That's the question, isn't it? Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade on your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forevermore. Praise God. Let's pray. Almighty God, the keeper of all your people, the keeper of this community, even of those who do not believe in you, we turn to you now in this time of distress, this time of confusion, and we lift up our eyes to you and ask that your help would come from Mount Zion. We ask, O God, that you would give your help to this board as they faithfully do their work. We thank you for each one of them and the staff that works with them, that they keep order in this community. We pray they will have wisdom. And I pray, O Lord, that their dependence will be upon you, and that you will grant their cries for help with answers that will be wise and profitable for them and for all of us. Grant, O Lord, the forgiveness of our sins, and grant us wisdom throughout this day, even beyond this meeting. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you very much. Now join me as we honor America by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is unscheduled appearances. Any person may directly address the board at this time on any item on the agenda or any item within the subject matter jurisdiction of this board. Speakers will be limited to 2 minutes. Does the clerk have a record of those wishing to address the board at this time?
Yes, the first thing that I would like to address is the board has received 12 letters regarding the water ordinance today. The first letter we received is from Dennis Mills at Mid Kings River Ground apologize. Groundwater Sustainability Agency. The second letter is David Merritt, Kings River Conservation District. The third letter is Charlotte Gallick. The fourth letter is Dennis Mills from Kings County Water District. Letter 5 is from Jacob Westra, Tulare Lake Basin Water Storage District. Letter 6 is from Deanna Jackson, Tri-County Water Authority. Letter 7 is from Scott Sills from Empire Westside Irrigation District. Letter 8 is from Scott Sills from Laguna Irrigation District. Letter 9 is Dusty Ferenz, Kings County Farm Bureau. Letter 10 is from Carlo Wilcox, Angelo Water District. Letter 11 is from Jeremy Garcia. And letter 12 is from Stephen Hagan, Kings River Water Association. And all of those letters will become part of the permanent record, and the board did receive electronic and hard copies. And then our first actual speaker is John Devlin.
Morning, John.
Good morning, John Devlin, Chief Information Officer of Kings County. I just wanted to give you a quick update on the broadband planning and design grant. Back on October 25th, I asked your board's permission to apply for that grant, which was granted. I do thank you. And 3 weeks later, the application was turned in on the 15th. So we're waiting to hear from CPUC. But I would like to thank some people. Joseph Gershman, who's a GIS specialist at Community Development. He helped me a great deal in getting a lot of that mapping and some of the census block information that was required, because that was over my head, and I'm an IT guy. Chuck Kinney also helped a great deal. He also kind of helped make sure it kind of passed the LAF test, because he does a lot more of these grant applications than I do. I'd also still like to thank Stan Moore, who's Assistant CAO/IT Director for Calaveras County, who let us take a peek at their successful application. And lastly, I'd like to thank Frank Gornick, who's with the San Joaquin Valley Regional Broadband Consortium, for his help throughout this process. Thanks.
Very good. Thanks.
That's all the speaker cards that I have for unscheduled. I do have some that are going to be for the public hearing, and it doesn't appear that anyone online has their hand raised.
Very good. Last call. Anybody in quarters like to address the board under unscheduled? See no one come forward, we'll close out the unscheduled appearances portion of the agenda and move on to the next item, which is a report out on the closed session that was held on November 8th. Diane?
Yes, I actually have something to report out from the November 1st, 2022 closed session. At that session, the board voted to appoint Julietta Martinez as the Economic and Workforce Development Director. That appointment became effective yesterday, November 28th, 2022, and the board will, in a separate agenda item today, ratify that appointment and consider her compensation. There is nothing from the November 8th, 2022 board closed session to report out.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am. The next, for the first action item of the day is to approve the minutes of the meeting held on November 8th.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Verboen, seconded by Fagundes. Thank you very much. Additional questions or comments? Hearing or seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboen.
Yes.
Craig Peterson,
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Let the record show the minutes stand approved, 5 in favor. Thank you very much. The next item is the consent calendar. All items under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted by one motion. The request of any board member, any item may be removed and made part of the regular agenda, and there are multiple items under the consent calendar. Have board members had an opportunity to review that document?
There are no question, comments, and move for approval.
Moved by Fagundes,
Second.
seconded by Peterson. Thank you very much. Additional questions or comments? Hearing or seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboen.
Yes.
Craig Peterson.
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Let the record show the consent calendar stands adopted by members present. Thank you very much. That concludes that part of the agenda. We'll move on to regular agenda items now. And the first item comes from the Assessor Clerk Recorder's Office. regarding an ordinance. Christy Lee, good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board, Christy Lee, Assessor, Clerk Recorder. This morning, I'm here before your board to request the addition of a low-value ordinance to the local ordinance code. This ordinance would reduce total assessments, or actually eliminate total assessments under $10,000. And it would also eliminate any corrections to the roll less than $5,000 and any supplemental assessments less than $5,000. Currently, the Kings County does not have a low-value ordinance, and the assessor is compelled to make assessments on taxable property in the county regardless of its value, even though the tax collector does not send bills that are on values less than $500. This results in making assessments where the taxes generated are less than the cost of assessing and collecting. The Revenue and Taxation Code permits the board to establish low-value standards that would eliminate this situation. So we did a cost-benefit analysis, and it's estimated that this would affect the general fund by $29,000 each year. We don't believe that would be actually noticed because each year the tax roll goes up, and so the $29,000 would definitely be offset by the increase in property taxes each year. But the savings would be approximately $430,000 to the county. This includes the cost of materials, postage, envelopes, forms, and staff time for both the assessor's office and the tax collector's office. So the recommendation today, let me give you the example that we have here. So for a quick example, smallest assessments of $10 in value would generate a 10-cent tax bill. Originally, it was a $400 personal computer, and it was depreciated over time. So this would mostly benefit the small businesses. We've noticed that your board has been trying to help small businesses, and this is just another opportunity to do that. Businesses that are starting out that have small amounts of equipment, this would benefit them. What happens with a lot of the small businesses is they get the forms from our office, and the forms are rather confusing. There's nothing we can do about that because they're state issued forms, but small business owners will come in and ask for assistance, and we're of course happy to help them. But it does take a lot of staff time because they just don't understand the forms. In addition to that, there's some small business owners that will hire CPAs to fill out the forms because they don't know what to do with them. And that costs them quite a bit of money, and probably more than their tax bill is. So this morning, our recommendation is to introduce and waive the first reading of the ordinance, adding Article 9 of Chapter 22 of the Ordinance Code pertaining to low-value assessments. Number 2, set the second reading for December 13th, 2022. And number 3, direct the clerk to publish the full ordinance within 5 days after the second reading as required by law. Any questions?
Very good. Thank you. Questions, comments? Good. Supervisor Peterson.
Yeah, thank you. So just to clarify, then this would set a cap at where you would even bother with it. I mean, you wouldn't, there's no, it's just going to be a number. It's not going to be, well, that one, I don't know. This one, there's going to be a hard number in which you say, we're not going to deal with that.
Correct. Right now it's at 0, so everything must be assessed. It would set it at basically $10,000 in value.
Okay. And then there would be no case where you would say, well, this one's different.
No.
Okay.
So everything you own needs to be under $10,000.
Yeah.
$9,999.
Right. That's
Not
all
a
the questions
problem.
I have. Thank you.
If there's no question or comments, I'll make a motion to approve and waive the reading.
Second. Moved by Boone, seconded by Fagundes. Additional questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing or seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richard Valley.
Aye.
Doug Verboon.
Yes.
Craig Peterson.
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Let the record show that item stands approved, 5 in favor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item this morning comes from the fire department, considering a automatic mutual aid agreement. Good morning, chief.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Bill Lynch, Kings County Fire Department. This is just kind of a maintenance issue. As you know, the Kings County Fire Department and Corker State Prison have had mutual aid and automatic aid for a long time. They really help us out tremendously in the Corcoran area and also in the Avenel area. They've had a change in warden at the Corcoran facility, and at their request, we're here this morning just to get an update on signatures and have your board sign the agreement. There is no changes in the agreement. All the response matrix and everything that's involved in it is all the same. It's just basically a change in the warden. So be happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Thank you, chief. Questions, comments?
There's no questions, comments, move for adoption.
Moved by Peterson,
Second.
seconded by Verboon. Thank you very much. Additional questions, comments? Hearing or seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Joe Nevs. Richard Valley.
Aye.
Doug Verboon.
Yes.
Craig Peterson.
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Let the record show that item stands approved.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. Thanks. The next item comes from Human Resources. Consider authorizing the director to sign an amended agreement with NeoGov. Danielle, you have the duty?
I do have the duty today. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Danielle Leet, Personnel Analyst, Human Resources. I'm here today to recommend that the board authorize the Human Resources Director to sign an amended agreement with NeoGov, which includes a subscription and the setup fees for single sign-on. The original agreement included the purchase of several modules, including onboarding, e-forms, learn, and perform. During implementation of the new systems, after being inundated with password resets and reactivations of employee accounts, it was recommended by our consultant that we purchase single sign-on. Single sign-on will allow county employees to easily access the new modules, provide a more secure environment, as well as cut down on the workload created for the human resources staff by eliminating the need to send out activation links, as well as password resets for the more than 1,600 employees. NeoGov requires that the county integrate the single sign-on with an identity provider such as Azure. The Information Technology Department already uses Azure, so if this amendment is approved, there will not be any additional cost to the county. The cost for the first year from December 1st, 2022 through September 30th, 2023 is $5,318. This is for the initial setup and the subscription fees. The cost for the second year from October 1st, 2023 through September 31st, 2024 is $2,783 for the subscription fees only. After the second year, the single sign-on subscription fees shall not increase more than 3% from the prior annual terms. The cost of the services are included in Budget Union 121-600. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to address those for you.
Thank you, Danielle. Questions, comments, or concerns about the agreement?
So move.
Moved by Fagundes,
Second.
seconded by Verboon. Thank you very much. Additional questions? Hearing or seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richard Valley.
Aye.
Doug Verboon.
Yes.
Craig Peterson.
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Let the record show that agreement stands approved. Thank you very much. Good luck. The next item comes from Public Works regarding notice of completion on the Kings County Sheriff Office Operations Modular.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me? This is Dominic Tyberski.
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
That's probably a good thing.
Okay.
So I am before your board this morning to request the chairman to sign the notice of completion so staff may finalize the project and start the clock towards release of retention for the Kings County Sheriff's Operations Modular Building Package. On September 1st, 2020, your board authorized awarding of the project to JTS Modular Incorporated located in Bakersfield, California, to fabricate, transfer, and install the 12,997 square foot two-story modular structure to the campus, which is now the Kings County Sheriff's Operations Building. Construction began upon board approval and was completed September 30th of 2022. Over the course of the project, we did have one change order due to design changes during construction, which were necessary to provide the best use of the facility. Change order number one, which was the only change order, was a total of $61,742.80. The original construction contract was in the amount of $6,374,000 with a final total construction cost of $6,435,742.80. So at this point, be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Dominic. Questions, comments, or concerns? Dave, you want to talk about your building?
Board, Dave Robinson, Kings County Sheriff. A couple of thank yous is really what I wanted to say. Dave Putnam, my assistant sheriff in the back, was our project manager and worked on that. Dominic, obviously, thank you to the board, to Chris Com, to Rudy Solis, like it really took a team effort to get this done and come in, right about where the budget is. So thanks for the support. The old building was built in 1964. So you can imagine how ecstatic staff is to be in a new building with the new bells and whistles. So just thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good, thank you. Any additional questions or comments? This is an action item, Chair. Moved by Fagundes.
Second.
Seconded by Verboen. Thank you very much. Additional questions? Hearing or seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley, Doug Verboen,
Yes.
Craig Peterson,
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Let the record show that notice of completion stands approved, 5 in favor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dominic. The next two items come from the Health Department. First item is to discuss a resolution proclaiming the month of November as Pulmonary Hypertension Month.
Good morning, Supervisors. Rosemary Rand, Department of Public Health. I'm going to introduce Zarina Marasegan, who's going to introduce this item.
Good, thank you.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Zarina Marasegan from Public Health. I am happy to stand before you today representing Public Health to announce November 2022 as Pulmonary Hypertension Awareness Month in Kings County. After the proclamation, we will be showing a video as well. We are fortunate to have Mr. Gerardo Estrada, who will say a few words. Pulmonary hypertension is a rare disease with about 500 to 1,000 new cases being diagnosed yearly in the United States. Pulmonary hypertension occurs when the pressure of the blood vessels leading from the heart to the lungs is too high, affecting blood flow. As a result, the heart must work harder, and over time, the heart can lose its ability to effectively pump blood throughout the body. Common symptoms of pulmonary hypertension include shortness of breath, feeling tired, leg swelling, chest pain, and feeling dizzy when walking. Pulmonary hypertension can happen on its own or be caused by another condition or disease and can affect people of all ages, including infants and children. It is more common among women, non-Hispanic Black people, and people ages 75 and older. Pulmonary hypertension does not have a cure and will get worse over time. Treatments can only control symptoms and can improve quality of life. It can take up to 2 years to make a diagnosis of pulmonary hypertension. Knowing about the disease and getting a referral to an expert center can help expedite the diagnosis and start of treatment. In California, there are only 8 accredited pulmonary hypertension care centers, with CRMC, California Regional Medical Center in Fresno, being one of them. The Kings County Department of Public Health is asking the board today to adopt a resolution proclaiming November 2022 as Pulmonary Hypertension Awareness Month in Kings County. Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Living with pulmonary hypertension is not easy. PH is a very complex disease that can be treated and managed, but not cured. The Fresno Pulmonary Hypertension Program at Community Health System is the only nationally accredited center in the Central Valley. It provides comprehensive medical care to those dealing with PH. Hear one local man's story of living with the disease and why he's so grateful for Community's PH program.
Gerardo Estrada lives for being active with his family. But 4 years ago, the Corcoran resident says he was struggling with poor health.
At 43, I started feeling a little bit sick. Little by little, I started getting shortness of breath, and then it started getting worse.
Gerardo saw various doctors, but no one could pinpoint what was wrong.
I was at the point in my life where I thought this is the way I have to be. This is just the way I got to deal with it. And it was miserable for my wife, my kids.
Finally, Gerardo got a right heart catheterization. Dr. Vijay Balasubramanian, or Dr. Bala, explains that pulmonary hypertension is difficult to diagnose.
The only way to measure it is to directly measure it. And for that, we need to do a procedure called right heart catheterization. And that means putting a little IV in and sending a little thin wire through that. And that goes through the veins into the right side of the heart. And then you can actually take it into the lungs and then directly measure the pressure.
Gerardo was referred to Dr. Bala, who officially diagnosed him with pulmonary hypertension.
It's high blood pressure in the lung circulation. There are many ways one can get it. The main type is the type 1, which is when the blood vessels within the lungs, the small micro blood vessels, get tighter over a period of time due to some thickening, due to an inherent process. And as it gets more and more tighter, the blood has to squeeze through those blood vessels and the blood pressure goes up.
Gerardo was 355 pounds, and Dr. Bala says the pH contributed to his massive weight gain. Though Gerardo was happy he finally had a concrete diagnosis to explain his ailments, the journey through this complex disease was just beginning.
The best way to explain it, it's like breathing through a straw all day and night.
Dr. Bala says symptoms of pH can be debilitating.
Shortness of breath and fatigue being the most common symptoms, especially when it's associated with some exertion.
The pulmonary hypertension program at Community Health System has been nationally recognized since 2017.
We are the only expert center in the entire Central Valley of California providing the specialized care for our patients here. So our patients travel average of 2 to 3 hours to kind of come and get their expert level of care.
Because of this program, patients like Gerardo are able to participate in cutting-edge studies and exposed to therapies that can help them get through their battle with pH.
He was able to go on an injectable therapy called prostacyclin therapy that we could start him on and then transition him to an oral form of the same therapy. And he benefited a lot from that.
Gerardo has a handle on his pH and is now back to living a vibrant and active life, filled with gratitude for Dr. Bala.
To welcome to the podium, Mr.
This weird toolbox.
Pulmonary hypertension, I want to always say that's the G-rated version of pulmonary hypertension. Because me just walking from here to here, I wasn't going to be able to do that when I was really sick. And that's the whole deal, just bringing awareness to pulmonary hypertension. For 2 years, I went through 3 cardiologists, no answers. I thought I was done. My wife made me go back. Original cardiologist finally referred me to Dr. Bala. Dr. Bala, I can't say enough. He is involved with his patients. I got him. He couldn't be here today. He was too busy, but I can't say enough. He calls me, texts me just to see how I'm doing. He wants to find a cure. There's no cure for this disease. And that's the whole deal. It's a rare disease and it's hard to find. Right heart catheterization is the only way to do it. I've had 4 of those, but it isn't a little wire. It's a pretty big wire. It hurts. They either go through your neck, your arm. The last time I had it done, I had problems with my arm. They had to go through the neck. I have to get it done every year because it's a progressive disease. Even though I'm doing everything I can to fight this disease, it's still progressing. There is no cure. The medication, I take 22 pills a day. From the morning, afternoon, it's hard. But you have to keep fighting. And one thing I want to bring up, I appreciate you guys doing this. Richard Valley is a good friend of mine. He was there. When I couldn't get diagnosed, he took me to the couple doctor's appointments, helped me get back on track. COVID hits, that was another issue. Dad passed away of COVID. Doctor says, hey, COVID's here, you better not get it. With COVID and pulmonary hypertension, they're real similar. And so I was really anxiety with this and that, but Richard kept me up on date on that. You don't get through this disease without your family and friends. You have to, help. But bringing awareness to it, there's a lot of people out there going through my same journey where for 2 years, you don't know what's going on. Oxygen's constantly under 90. And I can't tie my shoes. I can't take a shower. 2.5 years I went through this. And I thought this, hey, like I said on there, I thought this is the way I got to be. But there is something out there. If you get diagnosed, there's answers. And bringing awareness to this disease is the only way. At least letting doctors know, letting family know, letting everyone know. Pulmonary hypertension's rough on you, family, friends, but you can get your life back. If I don't find Dr. Bala, I'm not here today. I am not here today. I truly believe that. And every day, these pills, side effects, he talks about that IV. You have to be in the hospital for 5 days because the side effects are so bad. And then your body gets used to it. You finally get to the pills. And every day, Richard knows this firsthand. I don't know how I'm going to feel today. Last Sunday, I was bad. Side effects hit me hard. I can't do anything. Everyone sees me. Oh, you're doing great. You look good. They have no idea. But I just like to give you that side of it to let people know what goes on. It's rough for people. Today, I feel like I could do a marathon. 5 days from now, I don't know what's going to happen. But I just keep going. Just keep going. I appreciate the good days. Bad days I know around the corner, but I deal with them. You're not going to make me mad anymore. Why? You know what? Life is too short. And you got to keep going. There's a bunch of chronic illnesses, but there's a lot of things you can do to get help and embrace the help. But I appreciate you guys bringing some awareness to pulmonary hypertension. Dr. Bala in Fresno, he's the only pulmonary hypertension doctor in the Central Valley. And he's hard to get into, but once you're in there, man, the care, his staff, I can't say enough. They're the best. And that's the reason I'm here. But I appreciate the Kings County Board of Supervisors for giving me this opportunity. No, thank you guys.
So how much you weigh now?
215. I was 355.
How did you do that?
You know what I like to tell people? It's hard. And it's hard work. But when breath's taken away from you for 2 years, you'll do anything there is. And it scares me every day if I ever get that feeling again. So it keeps me on track what I have to do. And if anybody says healthy eating's fun, it's not. It's not.
I know that.
They're full of it, right? It's not fun, but you just got to do it.
Yeah.
And I walk to work every day. I walk home. Richard knows this firsthand. There's a place out the YMCA. When I first started feeling a little bit better, I go to one bench, go home. See if I could do 2 tomorrow. Go back the third day, see if I could make it around. I couldn't. How many times did I have to stop, Richard?
Took us about an hour to walk a lap.
Yeah. But little by little, I just kept going. And I appreciate that. And that's why losing the weight, you just got to keep doing it. If you want to quit drugs, alcohol, lose weight, you can do it. It's not easy, but you can do it. And it's hard work. It's hard work.
Yeah, I haven't put that much work into it then.
Yeah, no, hey, let me know.
I think I eat healthy food. I just eat way too much
Well,
healthy.
that's the key too. Do I want to eat 3 plates of food? Heck yeah, I do.
Exactly.
I don't.
Yeah.
And you know what? But if you want me to call you in the mornings, yell at you, I can.
No. I already have that at home. Yeah, I already have that at home. I don't
sugarcoat stuff.
Well, thank you for being here and thank you for sharing your story. And we also have a one-of-a-kind guaranteed to be a family heirloom.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. And you're looking great.
Yeah.
Just keep up the good work.
Yeah, no, I will.
And,
What you just say there is, my wife and kids are, that's what motivated me. You see me on that batting cage, that was one of my main, that was taken away from me. And every day I'm thinking, my family getting dropped off in front of the restaurant because I couldn't walk, 10 yards. And now, man, let's go. But it's embarrassing. You don't know what's going on. And it makes life difficult for everyone in your life, your job, your everything. But with some hard work, you can do it. So I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you. Good job.
We always knew Richard had a friend. We just didn't know who he was.
I got, he, that, he,
Thanks for sharing your story. It's very cool.
he's evidence that I got one good friend. Hey, Mr. Chairman, if I'll be quick, but, earlier this month, Gerardo invited me to Fresno. Me and my family, we went up there and that's where I learned that they actually have this annual, big event. They do a walk and and they do it to promote the awareness of pulmonary hypertension. And I met folks from Kings County that Gerardo actually sits on a committee to help organize the event, but also to do outreach for people who get diagnosed with it. There's a lady, she's 21 years old when she got diagnosed. She was there. But to see what the medicine has done for Gerardo, because what he brought up when he didn't know what was going on with him, he thought he was just out of shape. And we went to go walk a lap and it took about an hour to do one lap around the track. And now he outwalks a lot of people. People see him in Corcoran. He's got his backpack on, he's got his hat on, his headphones, and this guy's moving, and that's how he lost the weight, and that's from his good days. But he is a fierce competitor. He's always been that way growing up in 5th grade, playing marbles to basketball to baseball, and he's competitive because he's a Dallas Cowboy fan, and we all know how Dallas Cowboy fans are, right? But he's taken that same fierceness into this fight against this disease, and he's on a mission to raise the awareness. And so I hope, if anything, if the Hanford Sentinel is monitoring the meeting today, I think this is a good story to cover here today to help raise the awareness. Because like he said, people will have it, they can't breathe, they don't know what they have. He's helped a lot of people just talking to him, from people who've seen this video on YouTube already, and people who just see his fight. And then lastly, if there's anyone who likes to play ping pong, this guy now went from not being able to walk a lap to every night he's playing ping pong at a very high level. And I get tired just sitting there drinking a beer at night watching him. So if you want to play, come to his house and he'd love to take you on.
Too, and I knew he could. I told my wife, he came to my house. But that's the type of relationship I have with the doctor. And so he comes to the house, we have a tournament. He can play. He can play. But I beat him once, he beat me once. But when I went to the next doctor's appointment, I said, oh, when are we going to run this back? And he looks at me and goes, Gerardo, I want us to come off as arrogant, but when I went to your house, you only saw 10% of my game. I said, that's good. But I find you just like pulmonary hypertension. I'm going to beat you too. I have that type of relationship with him, and he makes things. If I have any questions, and I do, I have a book that my backpack, like Richard said, I don't go anywhere without it. And I will ask him anything, and I want to know. I just want to try to find out anything that could help me any day, every day, because there's roadblocks, obstacles every day. And if I can help somebody bring this awareness to, that's what it's all about.
You helped someone today, but thank you for your time. Thank you, board, for the time.
Yeah, no, thank you. With all that information, there is a resolution on the table. Moved by Fagundes.
Second.
Seconded by Verboen. Thank you very much. Additional questions or comments? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richard Valley.
Aye.
Doug Verboen.
Yes.
Craig Peterson.
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Good, thank you. Resolution stands approved, 5 in favor.
And
Thank
Mr.
you
Chairman,
for the presentation.
Mr. Chairman, do you mind if we do a quick pick? If we just invite Gerard real quick,
Yeah.
for a quick
Go
pick?
ahead.
Somebody mind?
This will be proof that Richard has his.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder, this is going on Facebook. Would someone mind taking a pic?
Heather will take the picture.
Gerard, come down.
Go down there, Richard.
Yeah?
Yeah, go down, take it. No, thank you. Good job. Yeah. I think I could weigh 180 pounds if I could talk the ag commissioner into changing the weights on the down scale. Yeah, I think it just weighs heavy. Ping pong, huh? That works pretty good. I've tried beer pong, but must be different. Yeah, good, thank you. Rosemary, you want to give an update on the COVID-19?
Yes, good
Campaign.
morning, Chairman, Supervisors, Rosemary Rand, Department of Public Health. Here today, provide an update on COVID, some seasonal influenza, RSV, MPX, and West Nile. Growing by the day. The number of COVID cases have increased steadily since my last report on October 25th. Since that date, there have been a total of 746 positive cases. By comparison, in October, there were a total of 375. There have been significant community case increases and specific defined outbreaks in inmate populations in the county, which also accounts for the increase. State and national forecasts now estimate that BQ1 and BQ 1.1 sublineages of BA5 variant now account for a higher proportion of cases than BA5. Kings moved into the high orange community level this past week. Weekly cases and test positivity have increased significantly. This was impacted due to the significant increases in COVID cases at the local prisons. Our neighboring counties are also in the yellow, indicating that they're also seeing an increase in cases. COVID deaths have also increased in recent weeks. Believe there have been 4. The deaths have occurred among persons with comorbidities or multiple illnesses and those not up to date on vaccinations. The COVID numbers are likely to continue to increase in the county throughout the holiday and winter season. We'd ask to consider masking up and getting the most recent bivalent booster. And it's too early to know how well the bivalent booster is protecting against this new dominant sublineage, but it looks like this variant was designed for the BA5, which this is a subset of that, so there should be some protection. Hospitalizations have increased since my last report. There are currently 4 Kings County residents hospitalized, 3 in med-surg, 1 in ICU, with the daily patient average for the past month has been at 6.25. Testing continues in the county at various locations and also at the Public Health Department. In the last 4 weeks, a total of 10,193 tests were completed in the county for a 4-week period. That averages to 2,548 tests per week. In addition, we've had great partnerships with some of the local federally qualified health centers who are also doing testing and offering treatment. So if you test positive, you can get on an antiviral. Over the last 4 weeks, vaccinations have remained steady. 2,817 vaccines were given in the county, and residents can have vaccinations at the health department, local pharmacies, and several pop-up clinics and federally qualified health centers. The COVID report and the additional data is located on our website. And as always, we'd like to remind everyone to stay home when you're sick, get tested if experiencing COVID-like symptoms, and get vaccinated or boosted if you've not yet. Due to the elevated community transmission levels, masking is strongly recommended in indoor settings, and masks are still required in healthcare settings, clinics, skilled nursing facilities, and areas of shelters and correctional settings in which healthcare is being provided. And so there's a lot of respiratory illnesses going on, and especially now after Thanksgiving, you'll notice more. So in addition to influenza, over the past 4 weeks, we've had 456 cases of influenza A that has continued to increase every week. The influenza subtype responsible for this surge is influenza A H3N2, and that's been associated with more severe flu seasons in the past. And the majority of the cases reported have been among school-age children, 0 to 17, but it's probably also likely that kids get tested more often than adults do because they'll go to the doctor. But it still remains a risk for the young and the elderly, and it's a good time to get your flu shot and protect yourself from serious complications because of the flu. Respiratory syncytial virus, which you probably heard RSV in the news a lot, the activity is higher than usual for this time of year. Among Sentinel laboratories in California, 16.7% of specimens tested of RSV are positive. 2% of the hospital admissions in the Northern California Kaiser facilities were for RSV, up from 1.2% the week before. RSV is a serious respiratory illness in children, especially infants younger than 6 months or those immunocompromised. CDPH and local health departments have been working closely with the local hospitals for surge planning for increased pediatric cases being seen in the emergency rooms. Currently, our ERs have seen increased visits. However, they're not indicated that they're surging beyond normal numbers this time of year. A quick update on MPX. There's 3 cases, which is 1 more than last reported. 148 cases among counties in the Central Valley, 5 more since last report, and 5,572 cases confirmed in California. The MPX outbreak is declining. The 7-day average of cases in California was 1.9 as compared to 96.4 in August. And vaccine supply is prevalent and people who are at risk can get vaccinated. And then this will be my last update on West Nile since it tends to wind down in the winter months. Our total so far for 2022 were 7 cases, 6 of those neuroinvasive with 2 deaths and 1 non-neuroinvasive. That West Nile reporting closes out in the spring usually of next year, just in case any other cases come through. And I'm available if there's any questions.
Good, thank you. Any questions? Supervisor Boone, you want to talk
I'm
about?
good.
You sure?
Good, I'm good.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the update. Moving on, the next item comes from administration. Mr. Hill, you want to introduce our next action item?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The California Education Code requires the Kings County Office of Education to visit schools identified in the county and report the results of these visits to your board. Today, we have Genevieve Almanzar from the Kings County Office of Education, who will present the final Williams report to your board as required.
Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, esteemed members of the Kings County Board of Supervisors. My name is Jen Almanzar, and I'm the coordinator of state and federal programs at Kings County Office of Ed. Today, I would like a bit of your time to report our Williams findings for the 22-23 school year. In 2004, the governor reached a settlement on a lawsuit that alleged that state failed to provide public school students with equal access to sufficient textbooks, decent school facilities, and qualified teachers. Legislation codified the settlement to create new standards for textbook sufficiency, good repair of facilities, and teacher assignment for all California schools. The settlement required county superintendents as the monitoring agents to ensure these new standards were implemented. For the 22-23 school year, as mentioned during our report last year, an update to the Williams legislation was issued by California Department of Education. Previously, the Williams School List was based on Academic Performance Index, or API, decile rankings. However, in October 2021, Assembly Bill 599 was signed into law, which updated the criteria for schools eligible for monitoring under the Williams settlement legislation. This year, the county superintendent was required to review 8 schools from 6 districts. We are pleased to report through the review of these schools, all schools were found to be in compliance with all rules and regulations. Individual district reports and a link to the CDE website, which describes the aforementioned changes, can be found at www.kingsco.org/page/513. We thank you for your time today and are open to any questions you may have.
Good, thank you. Questions or comments regarding the Williams report? Don't move.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moved by Fagundes, seconded by Verboen. Additional questions? Hearing or seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richard Valley.
Aye.
Doug Verboen.
Yes.
Craig Peterson.
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Let the record show the report's been accepted and filed, so thank you very much. The next item comes from administration with 2 items. First item is to consider approving the appointment to the Economic and Workforce Development Director. Mr. Hill, would you like to introduce the Applicant.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today, we are recommending your board affirm the appointment of Ms. Julieta Martinez as the new Economic and Workforce Development Director and set her compensation at $10,833 per month, including management benefits, with an effective date of Monday, November 28th, 2022. On September 30th, 2022, the current director separated from the county. Your board directed staff to initiate a recruitment and fill the vacant position. That process has been completed. Mrs. Martinez holds a master's degree in public administration and began her career in local government in 2007. She has held a variety of administrative positions in increasing complexity and responsibilities over the years. These include positions such as a clerk at a local school, the Tulare Board of Supervisors Chief of Staff, and most recently, the Tulare County Economic Development Manager. Ms. Martinez is in the chambers today. I'd like to invite her up to say a few words. I'd like to put her on the spot immediately.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah. Did you yeah.
She came back after the first day?
Right. Yeah. That's always a good sign.
So good morning, Board CEO, Clerk and Council. I just want to say thank you for having me this morning. It's been a nice transition. Administration, staff, and HR have been extremely helpful in trying to guide me and get settled in. And so I just want to say, I know you still have to vote on this item, but I look forward to speaking with each and every one of you to build on all the great qualities that already exist in the county and the cities and just kind of go from there. So if you have any questions for me, I am always available, and I'll make sure to get you contact information very soon.
Very good. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
That concludes that report.
If there are no other questions, this is an action item.
So move. Second.
Moved by Fagundes, seconded by Verboen. Additional questions or comments? Hearing or seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboen,
Yes.
Craig Peterson,
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Let the record show the appointment has been confirmed. 5 in favor. Thank you very much. The next item also comes from administration. Consider introducing and waiving the first reading of the ordinance dissolving the Kings County Water Commission. Matthew, would you like to take up the discussion?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Matthew Boyette, Kings County Administration. A few weeks ago on November 8th, I brought the initial first reading of this ordinance before your board to dissolve the current Kings County Water Commission and formulate a Kings County Water Resources Oversight Commission for permitting purposes, more authoritative purposes and policy purposes, in relation to another item on the agenda today as well. Within that November 8th board meeting, there was some discussion and feedback from your board on the composition of the commission, altering the composition to better address overall representation, the addition of alternates, and also addressing fitness of office with respect to expertise in the various agencies there listed on the initial composition. So the ordinance before your board this morning, the composition is altered from what was previously introduced on the 8th. And so the altered composition before your board this morning allows for consultants of the various agencies to also be able to serve. So initially it was just staff members of the various agencies, but with respect to allowing, the expertise to serve on the commission, we broadened the availability of those commissioners to allow for also the consultants of those that work for those various agencies to serve. As well as there was some comment on the county employment criteria for the 2 at-large folks in the community. We went ahead and removed the county employment stipulation and just simply made it 2 at-large appointments from the community. And we also addressed the addition of alternates of all commissioners. So there was some discussion of that last board meeting as well. So we allowed each of the categories to have alternates. And so another change from the initial ordinance was we allowed for each one of your board members to appoint one person in each of the categories outlined. So with that, everything else within the ordinance remained the same with respect to the duties and functions of the actual commission. So with that, that will conclude my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Are there any questions or comments for Matthew? Supervisor Valley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I guess, I don't know if we're looking to find common ground in the middle of anyone opposed, just simply what I was trying to get to during the first time we talked about this was seeing the composition and the possibility of the makeup of this board, right? And the possibility where not every area of the county would have representation. So to simplify that, I spent a lot of time talking about, let's just break this down into supervisorial districts, and each board member can nominate someone from their district. Then it comes to the board, and yeah, just like anything else, we vote to approve our nominees, right? And I thought that's what we were simply going to do today. When you took this back, I thought that language was going to be removed, but now I see that it's still the makeup of at-large and the makeup of a city manager, and then it goes on to say each member of the Board of Supervisors will have the authority to nominate one candidate for each of the positions. I guess, was that just trying to get to the middle and finding common ground? Because I just still look at this and it has the possibility of the big cities, Hanford and Lemoore, for sake of argument, just for example, that all the commissioners could be from Hanford or Lemoore versus every one of us saying, hey, from my district, I'd like to nominate this person. And then we would have fairness across the county. So I'll just start the conversation with that. But it's a little confusing to me because I feel like I'm in the same place, or we're in the same place.
Well, you may have,
we were, but
you nominate, you have five positions to choose from. You choose from your district, all 5 of those positions.
What's that?
You choose one person for each of those positions, or 5 separate people from your district, and we all do the same thing. We come to common ground here in the board chambers. You may have 2 members on the board. It depends on who's qualified. That's how, I mean, we're trying to find commonality. We didn't want a 10-member board.
Yeah, no, I know. No, I get that. And for these 5 positions, I thought simply we agreed to direct staff to come back with the language. Like I was expecting just the language that's under D, nomination and appointment, that paragraph. I thought that was going to be how we were going to appoint it. And now I still see the same language that, I don't know, I just feel the possibilities there to weigh it heavy on one side versus being spread out and having representation from around the county.
I'd like to speak to that if I could. We did try our best. There were complex discussions at the last meeting where we discussed this. And as staff, we tried to distill those conversations to our best ability into what you have here. This is, again, a proposal. And so there can be further discussions today, but we did do our best. I know that there was discussions going back and forth, and we tried to seek clarity, and this was our best at achieving that clarity. So sometimes it's difficult to get a meeting of the minds, but we can have further discussions today.
Yeah, I didn't want to see just appoint somebody just to appoint. They had to have some kind of background, some kind of skill set that supported the Water Commission. And, you know, you may have 2 or 3, I may have 2 or 3, but we all vote to find the balance of that once we're in the board chambers and we bring people to the table.
Additional discussion? I think we may have some public comments. Is there anyone that would like to add to the discussion on this item? Come on up and state your name, and I'll give you 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Jim Verboon. I'm up in the northern part of the county. I currently sit on the Water Commission, and the Water Commission has had problems getting quorums. And I like Water Commission as being in an advisory nature to the Board of Supervisors and not as a decision maker. And the reason is that the Water Commission does not stand for elections. You guys do. We can give you advice. You don't have to take it. And when you want to appoint another group in order to make that decision for water resources, then I would suggest that you must like what the Water Resources Control Board has done to our county, because we're recreating the same thing here in our county. I think the Water Commission, if the members aren't going to be focused and be in a quorum to meet as they are supposed to, that maybe they need to change the composition of the Water Commission and still keep it in as an advisory board or commission, not as a decision maker, because we don't stand for election and we shouldn't stand for election. But certainly the board has the responsibility to look out for the best interest of the county. And I have faith that they can do so. Any questions?
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else like to give testimony on this? Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Morning Supervisors, Dennis Mills, Kings County Water District, CAO, County Council, staff. Mostly my comment just centers around what the Water Resource Oversight Committee would be charged with in the ordinance, the other groundwater export ordinance that you're having a public hearing on later. As I read through that other ordinance, it looks like the Water Resource Oversight Committee would be tasked with evaluating a number of technical matters that, at least in my experience, have generally been evaluated by registered professionals in the state of California. So it's confusing to hear a proposal where some of them would be represented by cities, some of them by the supervisors, some of them by others, because at least in my experience, the pool of available candidates in the county is actually pretty small that would qualify to sit on this board. If you actually want them to be from Kings County, which I think is part of the discussion that you're having here today. Many of the consultants that we work with are not from Kings County. They're not residents, but we use them because they're qualified experts. They understand conditions in the area, and we pull them in for their help. Aside from that, the current Water Commission, I think, does fill a role that's important for the Board of Supervisors. The current Water Commission is made up of a variety of different parties from a variety of different water entities. And I think the purpose of that entity is really to give you feedback on general water conditions and water issues that are happening in the county. I think it would be an important thing to preserve that entity and continue to get that kind of feedback, even if the Water Resource and Oversight Committee was developed in connection with the groundwater export ordinance. Just some food for thought there, that it may not be necessary to dissolve one if you wish to create the other. And just a suggestion that in the groundwater export ordinance, if it could be somewhat clarified what the responsibility of that committee is, the Water Resource Oversight Committee, sorry, commission. I think I'm calling them committees, but I think they're commissions. If that can be clarified, I think a lot of this would be helpful, because the current commissioners are looking at this export ordinance and trying to see, okay, well, how would we be involved in this in the future? What would we be asked to evaluate? And it may not be something that you want to put in front of them. It may be a better thing to try to tailor your expectation of that other commission on other topics. I think that would be a valid effort.
Thank you.
Well, I just have a question.
Yes.
So if we designated the Water Commission to make it work, because our problem is they don't meet. They never get a quorum. Would that be the same? Is this, maybe we each commissioner on the board, like Supervisor Valley said, each one, we pick two people, one for an alternate and one for advisory. They have to work together to make sure one of them shows up for the meeting. And we keep that in place. Is that the same as what we're doing? Because I had a problem with this earlier too. I thought it was, 5 people And we don't have the talent in our community to support it as we need it. And some of us on the board need some help, guiding us through this water policy. As we've never had a water policy here at the county. And we're being put in a position right now to follow that through the state. So just my question. I mean, if Dennis, you want to talk, or Jim, you want to talk about how you would remake up the water commission? You guys had a meeting last night. Did you guys discuss that at all? About how you would
Reconstitute.
restructure it?
Roger, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Chair of the Water Commission.
Thank you for being here, Roger.
Roger Reynolds, work with Summers Engineering. I'm the co-chair of the current Water Commission, which may not last, but anyway, we did have a meeting last night, and we wanted to open up the opportunity for everybody on the commission, and there were 7 of the 9 members that we currently have at the meeting last night. And we opened that up with some initial comments and discussion from the commission members to share their thoughts about how the process was moving forward at this time. And we ended up having a unanimous decision that in a simple which will be in the minutes of the commission. The Water Commission recommended that the Board of Supervisors delay adoption of the ordinances to provide additional time for stakeholder involvement in the ordinances. And what that means is, how will it be implemented? How do you move forward with it? How is it all going to be done? And right now, there's not a lot of detail described in the overall policy as to how it would be done, but the ordinances are going to be in position. And we think the board generally, almost every one of the members said we need to talk and discuss and pause our time in moving forward in developing this ordinances.
That's the export ordinance.
Pardon?
That's the export ordinance,
That would be for both of them.
or the makeup of the water commission,
Pardon?
or the makeup of the water commission.
Yes. We didn't go into the discussions on that last night, but the thinking was that the concern that there are issues that are not really being addressed, and how do you implement those?
On the export ordinance.
On the export?
Yeah, so, I mean, what was it, 2017 that we sent back to the water commission to come up with some kind of finding on export ordinance, and you guys decided not to meet for 4 years?
What? We met last May.
That's not true. I mean,
How many, well, I mean, it's nothing new. I mean, we
it's
did
not
try to
true
vote
that
on
they
it as,
didn't- It's not true that they didn't meet for 4 years. And it's, I mean, you've got to also consider that during that time, it was COVID, right? I mean, so for a period of time, there was no meetings that were happening in the middle of that. I mean,
So if it were 3 years ago then, or whatever the term was,
yeah, no,
I mean, has there been any discussion? You knew that the water ordinance, an export ordinance was something that the board was considering. What discussions took place between then and now to give us some direction?
Well, we weren't directed to do anything at that point. In the May meeting, we were told that there are certain things that you wanted to move forward with. And then we checked with the planning department and said, one of the biggest concerns on the taking water outside the county, which is a major concern for everybody. But right now, there's a shortage of supplies already with the drought conditions that we have. And yet, how do you move forward with that? And the question in my own mind was, how do you know, how are you going to implement that right now? And that's where I think the existing Water Commission members that are involved with the water suppliers and the water districts throughout the county have an ability and knowledge of what's going on. And they just said, hey, we need to slow down because this just came out. I hadn't seen this ordinance until 2 weeks ago. And we weren't really aware of everything. I read it through about 3 times, and it's just difficult to say, exactly how is it going to move forward now? You're going to, if you approve the ordinance as is, how will it be implemented? Those are the questions I don't know. And
I have a
think you're going to
question.
need some advice from or discussion from the Water Commission who are involved in the.
And that hasn't occurred at all. You know, I mean, I mean, I think the board was pretty clear that there was some interest in protecting groundwater from leaving the county. And the commission just basically said, shut up. We don't want to hear it right now. Move on. I mean, that's the way I took it.
That's
right.
You heard it that way at the
I did.
meeting?
I did, and I continue to hear it that way.
December of 18 or 17, we went to vote on the export ordinance here at the county.
I would have to go back and check the records to get an exact date, but I know that it's been a number of years. It's been,
I know I was personally told by a large landowner, we were going to all the GSA meetings. We had a staff member going and I was told that we should be lucky that we're allowed into the room. It's a public meeting. And I don't want to bring anybody into it, but that was what was said to us, that we're lucky to even be involved in the conversations. Now the state has voted on it. 2016, they voted on the GSAs. And they're putting the county responsible for the groundwater supplies. And we have to have some kind of policy to start this process. And we don't have all the answers and we can work on it in the future, but we need to get a policy in place sooner than later. Or the state's going to be down here doing it for us. And we do not want the state down here doing it. We had a conference call with Paul Gothling, DWR, 3 weeks ago. And I told him, how do you expect us to take over the groundwater here in Kings County? We've never been at the table ever in history. You know, we've never had a policy where we went and told Dennis Mills what to do with his water, or we told anybody. Now we have the GSAs. And he said, well, you're responsible. End of the day, you're responsible. The GSAs have to come up with a plan and they have to do it on their own. And if they can't make it, the state will come down and do it for you. We do it for you. And you need to have some policy in place to handle those situations. So that's what we're trying to do here. And as far as the export ordinance, I've been trying for 11 and a half years. And it's nothing new to anybody. We've all known about it. I've talked about it a long time. You know, we protect Kings County as a whole here. We want to promote farming in Kings County with water from underground in Kings County. As the surface supplies dwindle and disappear, people are doing everything they possibly can to survive as farmers. And we don't want to see our groundwater be depleted because we have no control over it. I want to promote ag in Kings County at all costs. And I think our ordinance allows that to go forward. Of course, we're going to have a discussion on that later. This is on the Water Commission, but I guess I'll be quiet. And then, you know, as far as the Water Commission goes, you guys want to vote on it, or we could table it and bring it back later, discuss it? I don't know.
If I just want to apprise the board of one piece of information that would be responsive to some of the comments made today. Well, the makeup of the commission as presented does not have technical expertise on it. There is nothing that would prevent that commission or your board hiring on behalf of that commission technical expertise to advise so that the commission could rely on technical.
Right, that we can hire a provost and
Yes.
pitcher to represent us through their commission
You could,
without it coming to the board in front of everybody.
yes.
Would that be okay with you?
Well, I mean, you guys can do whatever you want to do. I'm not trying to shoot it at the effort. Really, the point that I did want to clarify, you know, Craig, I don't believe that it's accurate that the Water Commission told you to pound sand. What I recall being in most of those meetings was that the message being relayed was the GSPs are being developed right now. Please give us some time. That's what I remember the message being. Now, I think a lot of time has been given and the GSPs are about to be implemented, right? I mean, most of the GSAs in our area are actually implementing the first measures just right now. So I'm sorry that you took it that way, took the message that way, but I think the parties may have been focused on their big goal and not necessarily on your big goal. One of the things that I think I'm seeing here pretty clearly is there's the communication between the supervisors and their committees is kind of fractured, right? And whatever, whether it's Ag Committee, whether it's the or Commission or Committee or whatever it is, that tie there seems to not be working very well. The commissions are not focused on your priorities or are not being responsive to your priorities. And I'd say maybe address that first and see if you can salvage that before ditching either one of them, because I think they're both valuable and I think they provide very good insight to you on various topics. But maybe the topics need to be guided a little more directly, or the commissioners need to understand, hey, we need you focused on this and nothing else. You know, maybe that kind of direct involvement would help the situation.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion.
And I appreciate the comments. I mean, I do, you know, but the other side of that is that, you know, you get out into the community and, you know, you hear the real story and you know, I won't argue with about, you know, what people's opinions are. They are their opinions. And the unfortunate part of this whole scenario is that, you know, I mean, when you look at the management of water in California, it's a frickin' train wreck, right? Groundwater is being impacted because of diversions that were never intended to be. The unfortunate part of that, the unfortunate outcome is that, you know, everybody in this room that's a farmer knows it's a race to the bottom right now. The next well, the next deeper well. And, you know, from my standpoint, it's absolutely unacceptable for this board not to take that leadership role to say, we can't allow that to happen. Now, you know, the GSAs, the GSP, we don't have a coordinated agreement yet. It's pretty messy out there right now.
Well,
From the GSA standpoint in Kings County, we're at loggerheads, and I fully expect that, you know, this thing's going to go to court and it's going to be there for a while. They're you know, interests that
Right, but you're not going to fix that with this commission, right? I mean, that's not what you're going to fix. I mean, let's just go back to the.
and I give you all the ownership of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, thanks. I don't really want that, but I understand.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about the Mid-Kings River GSA and what they're doing, right?
Mhm.
So at the Mid-Kings River GSA's last board meeting, they approved a new ordinance that all wells need to be registered within the service area. And that's active and needs to be accomplished by May 1st of 2023, right? Domestic, ag, industrial, everything. Pretty big lift, not a small effort, right? We've been working on that for the last year already, and it's going to be a challenge to meet that deadline. They also passed another ordinance that said that flow meters are required on all wells by January 1st, 2024, right? So things are moving, and that board is working through what the first groundwater restrictions would be that they hope to implement in the fall of 2023, right? And some of those groundwater restrictions, like in the Greater Kauai GSA, which is kind of the Lakeside Irrigation Water District area, those are already in place this year. They're already in place in Westlands, right? So every area is in some, Tri-County Water Authority also has groundwater pumping restrictions. Every one of those areas is in a varying stage of proceeding towards compliance, which is going to be reducing pumping in the area and building out projects to try to get that balance in place, right? So this export ordinance I see that's something that will probably help, right? I don't think any of the GSAs fully understand how much that's going to help. And a number of them, like my area in the Mid-Kings River GSA, which is the northeastern part of the county, I don't see a lot of export happening from my area that I'm aware of. However, I do see landowners along the county line that pump on both sides, and that's my primary concern there, right? But you know, I understand the overwhelming feeling of, man, something's got to happen and it's got to start happening, and it is. It's just hard to see that we're just starting to ride this wave. Some days it's bigger than others, but it is beginning to happen.
This topic is just on the water commission today, right now. We're already 20 minutes past our time on the export ordinance. So, Joey, you want to?
Supervisor Valley, do you have a question or comment?
I do. I was going to ask that gentleman, but I'll ask you, sir. So just going back to some of the things that I'm taking all this in. I mean, when it comes obviously to water, there's different levels to it. And the way my district's been situated, I've been focused a lot on the water issue from day one, especially how it relates to the smaller communities, Kettleman City, Avenel. I've been to Sacramento many times, going back to Governor Schwarzenegger, going up back and forth to get water, emergency supply water for the city of Avenel when they were about to run out. But when it comes to this type of discussion, I do look and I listen. We have leaders on the board with Supervisor Peterson and Supervisor Boone and the two gentlemen to the left of me who are more focused on ag and educating that area than me. I'm saying all that to say this. I'm trying to be fair and open-minded. But when I hear going back to the current water commission and that, okay, you guys met last night, but you haven't met since May, and we're in the middle of a drought and water is priority. It's one of the number one issue, obviously, right now. Why is it that hard if when I'm seeing people standing against the water day who are obviously concerned about this issue, why is it that hard to get a quorum to conduct business, to hold a meeting between May and last night? Or is there not, are you relaying to us that there's not a need or an urgency to have a meeting between May and last night?
We were told that there was a requirement that the board wanted us to move forward in some ways with doing such and such. There was never anything put into writing provided to me or to anybody on the Water Commission sharing what those issues were. We asked one question because of this taking water out of the county. We asked planning to review and see if there's any studies that have been going on saying how much water is currently being taken out of the county. We'd like to see what information that is bringing this concern for the ordinance together. And then we got word back that there's nobody that they were aware of within the county that was looking into that.
Okay, and that part I heard.
The question is, did they want us to be doing that ourselves or as a committee?
Well, to simplify, because I heard that earlier, I appreciate you repeating it, but take away the ordinance that we're about to take up right now, right? And take away this item. There's no other reason for the Water Commission to meet between May and now in the middle of a drought?
Well, the issues is that the drought situation right now is still really bad. And groundwater levels are lower now than they were last year at this time.
Okay.
And that varies throughout the county.
Okay.
You know, we worked with Home Garden Community Services District and we just measured their wells just last week. I haven't seen any data throughout the whole county as to how does the varying water levels work. Okay. But question is that data is out there with the different agencies that do some of that monitoring for us.
Well, I'm glad you're here, sir. I'm glad other folks are here this morning to speak on it. Because again, in all fairness, when I'm hearing one side of a story that you guys aren't meeting and there's a need to meet and the possibility of this ordinance, I want to make sure that both parties are at the table, because this is online, right? When you talk about the makeup of this board, and it gets emailed out every Friday. You can click a link, you can get the whole packet that the board has. And I know that's not always easy. So I would just ask that if the board does decide to delay a vote on this today, then maybe the clerks can make hard copies of this, so that way the folks in the room can leave with a hard copy, read it, look at it, because one of the main things it says is this new commissioning body needs to be formed to be the permitting body for groundwater export permits, right? And so that's some major language in here. And so, and if you guys are here now, there's no need to berate or go back and forth. The point is, you guys are here, you're at the table, and if the board is looking to have that conversation, it means delaying of the day, then I would be supportive of that as well. But let's have the talk and let's have the conversation so we move forward to be a better and stronger county, not just in times of drought, but even in the good wet years. Thank you, sir.
Water is going to keep dropping with the county growing as it is. And there's more people in the public arena than there was before. The population shows that. And so that means additional groundwater pumping will occur that is not necessarily used right now. And so that's why it's going to be an ongoing issue into the future. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Justin, you want to say something? I'll give you a couple of minutes.
I'll try to be as brief as possible. I did want to provide Justin Mendes, General Manager, Northport Kings, GSA. In my previous job, I did attend Water Commission meetings, and my old boss, Mark Gilkey, was chairman of the commission. And I wanted to provide some context that the Water Commission lost, John Howe to retirement, Mark Gilkey took a new position. And also at the same time, the county had some changeover in staff. And so it was kind of like a worst case scenario of, the expertise, all of the expertise kind of leaving, or should I say the leadership of the Water Commission took a big step out. And I do think that there is a need for Water Commission. I do think that the board should pick the members of it. I do not think 5 of you picking 5 people is a good idea. I don't think a 25-person commission is a good idea.
It wouldn't be that. It'd be 5. We pick the best 5 out of the.
Or with alternates, 10. I think alternates is a good way to help with quorums. But I do think that the board could help facilitate the agenda items and the topics that need to be discussed, because many people on the Water Commission, they are experts in their field, but they're I guess, laissez-faire in nature, right? Where they don't want to impose anything on people. So they'll discuss whatever you tell them to discuss. It's a matter of, who the chairman is and the involvement from the Board of Supervisors to them. And I think the past couple of years, because of COVID and 2 folks leaving the commission, there was a lot of miscommunication or completely lack thereof. So I think you guys can fix this. I think it's very fixable. I think there's a need for a Water Commission. And I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Chairman, one question, please.
Yes.
Thanks for being here. I know you're around, you're proactive, you'll call, hey, let's get a meeting, let's sit down, and you're in the loop. So could I ask you this, just for fairness? So for folks who think that this ordinance we're about to take up regarding exportation of groundwater in Kings County, for people who think that this just popped up out of nowhere when really it has been around for years. I know Super Boone has been very patient and make sure the language is right legally, a whole lot going on for years. Do you feel that this just popped up, or can you say that this has been around for a long time?
Referring to the Water Commission ordinance or the
groundwater? The groundwater.
The groundwater export.
Yeah.
That has been around for a very long time. And I do believe, but I have never seen, I've had multiple conversations with most of this room about the export ordinance for the past 3 years, multiple conversations about it. I have never seen the Board of Supervisors give consensus for staff to work on it. I've always seen it be like, staff would, hey, we're working on this, or discussions with an individual supervisor. But so I've never seen it always comes up kind of like this. It's been before you multiple times, this body, but I've never seen 3 members of the Board of Supervisors instruct staff to do this in a public venue.
Got it. Thank you. Thanks, Justin.
Jay?
I'll be brief just because I think you guys are running over time and we're going to be mixing the agenda topics. But my name's JJ Westra. I'm the general manager of Tulare Lake Basin Water Storage District. Just with makeup on the Water Commission, if you're looking maybe for alternates, I think one example could be the Air Resources Board. They have an alternate structure, so that may be a model for you guys to use for that. And then maybe my last comment is, I know there's some concerns on the ordinance. I know that's the next topic, but the Water Commission, I think they represent or advisory to each one of you members, of the board as an advisory role. I guess I'm also thinking, as my wife always says, she's a very smart woman, it goes back and it goes both ways. There's the same number of digits from here to there. I would just maybe, and I'm not on the Water Commission, but I just don't know if, the Board of Supervisors had reached out to kind of your representative and say, hey, we want to do this. Where is this? Where is this going? We want to push it forward. So just maybe food for thought. Again, it's a two-way street between both, board member and Water Commission. So that's all I have for the record. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. It's 10:30.
Let's table this item, make a motion to table it and bring it back at a later date.
Okay.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Verboen, seconded by Valley to table the discussion on the Oversight Commission formation ordinance.
Let's do this with this
I
motion.
see one finger over here. So
A table it to a specific date?
Let's table it to send it back to the Water Commission and have them propose back to us how they can make it work, where they can meet at least 4 times a year under a new restructure. So this is giving the Water Commission a direction at this time at their next Water Commission meeting. Once they come back to us with a direction on how they can make the Water Commission work, where we can get feedback from our Water Commission at least 4 times a year or more, I'd appreciate it.
Did you set a month? You want to set a month, like?
When would your next Water Commission meet? January, February?
Roger, did you pick a date? Going to be around. Yeah, that's. Yeah.
Well, and I would say also, just friendly amendment, there's some structure in here that was proposed. And I think, they should come back with some thoughts on the structure that was proposed within this document, because there was some direction with respect to the next
Yeah, we had a item to. But I want one meeting and I want one direction back to us, not drag out for 6 years. So I say, but February, middle of February, give you guys enough time to come together? Is the next scheduled meeting? Okay, 4th Monday of February.
Is that Martin Luther King Day? Oh, it's February. I'm sorry. I thought you said January. So that would make February then. And did you want to pick a date or you want to just leave it till after the next regular scheduled Water Commission?
They can make a presentation back at the next date to us,
Okay.
in March.
Non-specific date?
How about if we define it as the first board meeting after their next regularly scheduled meeting?
Well, that's
2 board meetings.
date. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And the maker of the motion is all right with that?
Yes.
And the second is okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the clerk has that clarification?
Not really, but I'll.
I appreciate your honesty.
I think my notes are clear.
You think you got it covered?
Are you ready for roll?
We're going to table this issue until 2 meetings after the Water Commission meeting in February of 23.
You ready for roll?
And if there are no other discussion, yes, please call the roll.
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richard Valley.
Aye.
Doug Verboen. Craig Peterson.
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
All right, let the record show that motion to table has been approved by members present, and it'll be back on the calendar for February 23.
And just for clarification, Supervisor Valley asked for us to make copies. We will carve out that portion and put it on our website separately so they don't have to go through the whole packet to find it.
Okay.
So that way they can print it at their leisure.
Okay.
Very good. Good. Apologize for being late, but we'll now move to a public hearing that's been scheduled regarding the proposed ordinance governing the extraction of groundwater and the intention of exporting groundwater outside the county. And Matthew, would you like to kick off the discussion?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Again, on November 8th, I brought forth the introduction of the groundwater export ordinance. which would govern the extraction of groundwater with the intent to export that groundwater outside of the county boundary. It would outline a county approval process via permitting that would have to come, to the county for approval before that was to happen. So within that first reading, there was some comment and feedback. One thing that we brought forth was in that meeting, we had, and it was submitted to your board and the clerk for the record. It was a revision to section 14C10, item B. And that revision that is included in the ordinance before your board this morning for consideration now reads, for the purpose of this section, extraction of groundwater also includes but is not limited to. And so that language was altered to address some inclusive versus exclusive perceptions of that section in the first reading. So we went ahead and made that adjustment. That was discussed and introduced to your board at the last hearing on the 8th. And that still that stands as revised in the ordinance that you have before you. Other than that revision, everything else in the ordinance remains the same. Your board directed everybody in the community to, take the next several weeks, review the ordinance, submit comments, participate in the public hearing. And so we have received several comments for the record that the clerk outlined earlier this morning. I'll go ahead and just reiterate those for the purpose of this agenda item. So we did receive a formal comment from the Mid-Kings River GSA, David Merritt, Charlotte Gallock, the Kings County Water District, the Tulare Lake Basin Water Storage District, Tri-County Water Authority, Empire West Side Irrigation District, Laguna Irrigation District, the Kings County Farm Bureau, Angiola Water District, and Jeremy Garcia. All of those comments have been provided to your board. And so with that kind of concludes my presentation, and so thank you.
I would like to make one comment just for clarification. The changes that Matt referenced that were incorporated into the physical document that was published for the second reading as part of this meeting, they were actually part of the first reading. If you remember, we introduced those as an alternative at the meeting, and the motion for the first reading and to waive the first reading included that language. The reason I'm clarifying is because if we had made substantive changes after the first reading, then we would have to continue the process, and this would then be the first reading. This is in fact the second reading. The first reading did include the changes that Matt referenced. We just physically put them in the ordinance for publication for this time.
Very good. Thank you for the clarification. Are there questions or comments of staff? Hearing or seeing none. Diane, do we have members that would like to offer public comment at this time?
Dennis Mills.
Very good. Welcome back, Dennis. Thank you.
Good morning. Most of my comments really are about, is not a criticism of this version at all. It looks like a good starting place, but my recommendation to you would be to consider some of the comments that have been provided. As I read through the ordinance, it is very difficult to understand what is being restricted and what is being exempted. What is the path of a landowner who is along the border and qualifies for an exemption? Does that party have to go through the new Water Resource Oversight Committee and get an exemption approved? Or can he just continue on? Things like that in the current version of the ordinance are very difficult to understand from a layperson's perspective and even from a person who's been in the water business for a long time. And I think they can be clarified and revised and made much cleaner so that fewer people are impacted that are really not intended to be the target of the current ordinance. The other thing that I would draw your attention to, obviously the Mid-Kings River GSA or the Mid-Kings River GSA and Kings County Water District submitted comments to you. But another part of the ordinance that just was not clear to me was whether surface water districts, like an irrigation district or a county water district, was restricted in the same way that a landowner would. So if a water deal is made by, a good example is Lakeside Irrigation Water District in dry years, can't take delivery of their water on the Kauai system because it won't make it to them. There's not enough. So they sell that water in one year and they get more water back in a coming year. Is that an export of surface water from our area that then leads to groundwater pumping restrictions imposed by the county? Things like that are regular exchanges and practices in our area. Just wasn't clear to me whether those were exempted or whether they were included and would have to go through this new commission process. So anyway, I do think if you can draw some clarity to those particular issues, this will go a lot further to be something that is implementable versus something that folks kind of fight over.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Diane, do you have a next one?
The next would be Stephen Hagen.
Thank you very much for hearing me out today. I'm Steve Haugen, Water Master for Kings River Water Association. For those of you not familiar with the association, it's a nonprofit association, unincorporated association. It represents 28 water right holders on the Kings River. We deliver water, or our member units deliver water to about 1 million acres in Fresno, Kings, and Tulare counties. So we have a large service area. There's a lot of water movement that occurs back and forth between those 28 member units. But on whole, it remains about the same type of water being delivered to the various counties in that. Current ordinance as drafted would get in the way of some of those traditional transfers, exchanges that occur, very similar to what Dennis just described. We were able to deal with those kinds of issues with the Fresno County ordinance that was adopted probably 25 years ago or so, that provided some exemptions specifically for those historic transfers, those historic movements, those traditional actions that are happening. So my comments today are strictly focused on the surface water aspect that gets tied into the groundwater ordinance. I'd encourage you to delay adoption of this to provide us a little better opportunity for vetting. It was characterized as a groundwater ordinance. As you read into it, it really does impact surface water deliveries. And we want to make sure that that's had an opportunity to clarify exactly what's intended and bring again some of the clarifications as Dennis mentioned as well. So I just wanted to bring that up really specifically from surface water and from the movement of water between the various organizations. Also, the definition of local public agency goes just to electeds. You have mutual water companies that are very significant in the area. I think they need to be incorporated. And then like the association is a nonprofit unincorporated association. We need to be able to make the actions that have happened. And currently the ordinance doesn't allow us that kind of an exemption. And I've provided a letter in writing that details those out to the clerk. So,
thank you.
Questions?
The only comment is we have no intentions of controlling surface water. That's a violation of our personal property rights. We just want to make sure we keep the groundwater here and use it for farming purposes.
And I think there's some clarifications that can be made to make that happen.
Okay, we'll work on that.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roger Reynolds. Roger Reynolds, did you want to speak again? Next, Nathan Olson, did you want to speak? No. And then Larry Faria.
Good morning. Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Larry Faria. I lived in Kings County for about 45 years. I'm here to speak in support of the ordinance and governance of groundwater extraction, as most county residents and small farmers are. We have grave concerns over the excessive pumping of our most precious resource. Since the NASA data is clear that since the 1920s, groundwater pumping has caused the San Joaquin Valley to subside by as much as 28 feet and continues to do so at an alarming rate. As I've heard estimates by local officials that Hanford has approximately 200 years worth of water and Lemoore has substantially less left in its aquifers. Now is the time to save our water for our residents, for our children and our children's children. We understand that food production takes a large amount of water to grow food to sustain our food independence. However, the aquifers under our jurisdiction should not bear the brunt of California's water woes and inaction of state and federal politicians who refuse to address our water storage needs. We as county residents should not have to worry about our water under our farms and houses being pumped out from underneath us to line the pockets of out of the area water brokers. It's your duty to protect the resource, and we appreciate you taking a step in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Morning, Seal. Thank you for being here.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Seal Howe Jr., Westlake Farms. I live and farm in the Torrey Basin. I personally am against the ordinance right now. We have Sigma on top of all the farmers now. If Sigma does its job, you get sustainable water in 2040. That's the program. Whether it works or not, that's, if you put this on top of it, we can't do anything. Who do we work with the county? Do we work with Sigma? I guarantee you 5 years, the state's going to be here and run the whole damn show. We don't get our act together. We need to give Sigma and the GSAs a chance to do their job. If they do their job, the groundwater level is sustainable at whatever level is picked, and we go forward. Number you hear right now around all the areas, I think Mr. Mills will substantiate what I'm going to say. There's a half an acre foot per acre to pump groundwater. To grow an acre of almond trees, you got to fallow 7 acres of ground. Something's going to happen, folks. And if your groundwater is not valuable enough to put on your trees, and somebody will offer you more money, whether he's growing corn silage or whatever he's doing with it, you've got to look at it. You've got to stay alive. You've got to feed your family. We also have to realize the cyclical nature of water in the valley. My dad was born and raised here, lived in the Tulare Basin. He said from 1924 to 1937, no water flowed in the Tulare Lake with no dams on any of the rivers. From 1937 to 1945, the lake was full. And so it shows the cyclical nature of the rainfall and snow in the mountains. We've got to, I really don't believe in global warming. We got too damn many people, but there is an impact. But we've got to give the cyclical nature of Mother Nature, the rainfall. Look at Steve Haugen's rainfall charts for the Kings River. They go like this, like this. And so I think this groundwater ordinance is a political fight between two individuals that the whole county doesn't need to be drug into their fight, because it's going to end up that the state's going to take over the whole damn show, and then we're going to be real sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane?
The next would be Guy Brodigan. Okay. And then Nick Wagner.
Good morning. Thank you for being here.
My name's Nick Wagner. I've lived in Kings County for over 50 years. I first arrived as a young airman back in the 70s out to Naval Air Station Lemoore, and got driven by their old bus from Fresno Airport in the middle of the two-liner Tule fog. I have never seen anything like it in my life. I'm from Chicago, born. So I've been here for a long time, married a local, and raised my kids here. And I just want to say that I'm concerned about our water resources. There was a lot of fog many, many years ago, and that's going away. And I can only attribute that to loss of groundwater, or, surface water. We talk a lot about resources at the Hanford City Council meetings. Comes up a lot, along with development and population. According to the Kings County Association of Government, the Regional Housing Needs Assessment Plan, a state mandated process, says that between 2023 and 2031, houses in Kings County are going to increase by 9,429 houses. That's an estimate. That's a lot of new houses and a lot of new families and a lot of new mouths have to drink the water that we have here. And I think that the ordinance that has been proposed by you guys is a really good step to keeping that groundwater here for our people and our folks in Kings County. And I just want to thank you for it and see how it goes.
Thank you.
JJ Westra.
Again, good afternoon or good morning, Board of Soups. Again, we submitted the letter on behalf of Tulare Lake Basin Water Storage District. Again, just asking you to take pause on this, meet with us, and we can help you kind of write it and work out some of the kinks. We listed several of them. We're willing to sit down with staff and Board of Soups. So that's all I need to say about that.
Good, thank you. Diane, you have another?
That is it, and nobody with hands up online?
Justin, let me catch Justin, then I'll get you Jim next. Justin? Thanks for hanging around here today.
Yeah. Again, Justin Mendis, General Manager, North Fork Kings GSA, which includes multiple Kings River units, including Laguna Irrigation District, who has sent a letter within Kings County. We just want to voice formal GSA support with Laguna's comments. Also, I do want to address multiple things that were said earlier. I think what Seal Howe had said about GSAs, we need to do our job and we're going to implement policies to do that. You've seen our neighbors in Greater Kauai and Madera having problems implementing policies, outreach on those policies. But things are getting done, and as GSAs, we do need to work on these things. Something that was said in regards to the responsibility on the counties. The goal of Sigma is for us to be sustainable within our subbasins. And the way groundwater works is like there's not a special aquifer underneath the boundary of Kings County. There's multiple that overlaps with two counties. My GSA overlaps Fresno and Kings. Laguna landowners need to be able to move water how they need to keep their operations going. And sometimes that's across the county line on the same field. I do think that with 4 subbasins touching the boundaries of Kings County, they need to work on their own subbasin policies, and a one-size-fits-all countywide policy will probably conflict with some of those. So I do want the board to take that in consideration. But in speaking as Justin Mendis, who has been involved with water politics and local government for quite some time, I would suggest if the board does want to keep pursuing this ordinance, to get a small group together. No disrespect to anyone else in this room. I think the 3 people that should be considered would be Scott Sills at Laguna, Dennis Mills from Mid-Kings and Kings County Water District, and someone from Tulare Lake Basin Water Storage District. I know we're leaving out some gaps, but those 3 entities would cover up most of the county, groundwater and surface water expertise, engineers, hydrologists that can really get to what works and what doesn't. If you keep the group small to that group, and I'll leave my comments there. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Justin. Jim, you want to say something?
My concern is I've lived in this valley my whole life. This is my home. I want to leave this water conditions at least so my generation is not the last to be here. And on the route that we're on right now, with the overpumping that's going on, regardless of where the water's going, I'd like to say that it is a good idea to have a smaller group that would work on what would work as an ordinance. I think there's several different ways that haven't really been researched to do that. And one would be, we know the cropping pattern, we know the amount of water it takes to farm the amount of cropland in this county. And we're exceeding that every year by tremendous amounts. And it's showing in our groundwater just descending rapidly. It's fallen off a cliff. This board has a very untenable position of having multiple GSAs for multiple counties. The impacts are significant to this county and from this county. And what I would like to see, and I believe as a farmer from here forever, and the farms are the ones that have put the money in through the assessment process to the water districts. The water districts have kind of taken control over it, and the farms really haven't had much input. When we're looking at this ordinance sets out separate ideals for different people. And in my opinion, every farmer, entity, or whatever needs to be treated equally. This ordinance does not treat equally. It says some will be given permits, i.e. permission to export water from the county. Now, these entities, if they're within the county and at the edge and have entity and have property in two counties, historically, if they have transferred water back and forth, do they have wells in both counties and transfer, use it as a unit? I have no problem with that. I don't want to attack that. If we're sending water that's going out and it's going from one entity to another, to another, to another, then if we don't get replacement water, this county's done. It's not that long a period of time. We'll be dry before 2040 is ever here. We need to, in my opinion, come to some sort, and there's nothing wrong with having differing of opinions. And that's what the Water Commission was here for. We represent different interests of the county. And we should be able to argue it out and come hopefully with something that works for the benefit of the county. At this time, I'm in favor of not pursuing immediately this, but putting together a group that represents the farmers, the irrigation districts, and the irrigation district influence of the whole county. So, because there's tremendous difference between the southern county and the northern county. And the board can do it as it pleases, but I like the Water Commission, and the alternates, I think, might resolve the issue of having quorum problems. With that, are there any questions?
Thank you, Jim. Just for the record, state your name for the, so
Jim
that,
Verboon.
yep, thank you. I don't have my other long glasses
It
on.
looks like
What's
Zach Just has his hand raised.
Okay.
Zach Just with Westlands GSA. I agree with a lot of what's being said, and I understand the concern of the board in conserving water, especially in Kings County. I would just request that GSAs remain, have a seat at the table. There is a big difference between sub-basin boundaries and county boundaries, and I think we can come to some sort of cooperation that would be beneficial for both. We don't want to be fighting each other. We both kind of have the same idea. We want to conserve the water within our jurisdictional boundaries, and doing that cooperatively would be something that we would be interested in doing.
Very good. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Last call. We'll go ahead and close out the public hearing. Oh, there isn't.
There is one.
Oh, somebody? Good morning. Thank you for being here.
And I'm Judy Mendez. I reside in Corcoran. And I just want to get some clarification on how this will affect residents. By next July, there will be 4,000 additional wells, residential wells that have gone dry. And when you're talking about transporting water from one county to the other, that is done now. How will this affect that? Because sometimes we have to get water in Fresno and bring it out on 14th Avenue in Lemoore. There may be a time we need to get water from here and take it to our neighbors in Waukena. So I want to know, would that be the same kind of thing, getting permits for that or permission? Or how would that work? Because right now we can't drill. The permits are so hard to get to even drill a well for these people that are running out of water at their homes.
Perhaps I can help with that. The ordinance, the proposed ordinance in section 14C-13 defines certain activities that are not the export of groundwater, and they include the transport by vehicle of potable water for human consumption.
They exclude or include?
Excludes. So I think unless I understand it incorrectly, the questions you're presenting are addressed by that section of the ordinance and would allow for the provision of water for residential purposes moved by truck.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? So no one else come forward, and I don't see any hands raised. And does the clerk have any record?
Just the 12 letters that we referenced
letters.
earlier. And it appears that all of the speaker cards have been completed.
Very good, thank you. Bring it back for discussion by the board.
So this has been an item of mine since I was probably 8 years old. Movement of groundwater hit my family hard. We watched the water move from the northern part of Kings County to the southern part of Kings County. And as the farmers grew and developed more ground on the west side, they got access to surface water supplies from the San Luis Reservoir. And as the environmentalists grew, they took that water away. People developed ground out in areas that never were farmed before. Beautiful farm ground, no access to water, surface groundwater is way down below the bottom. Now, as time goes on, zero allocation of surface water prevents people to survive, and they're pumping our groundwater to keep their ground alive. It's really not our problem to make sure that the ground in Fresno, Kern, and Tulare County or whatever is using our groundwater to survive. They should have water from their own counties. We represent the people of Kings County. We're voted in by the people of Kings County. It makes it difficult. The option of being a farmer on a borderline area, and you were getting, so walnuts are like 40 cents this year. Almonds, I don't know what the hell almonds are. You get an opportunity to sell your groundwater, you're going to do it. I mean, it does not make any sense to farm the crop when you can farm the water. We want to take that temptation away. Surface water supplies have increased dramatically, probably double, tripled in the last 10 years. That's very important to us to have all much surface water here as possible to keep your ground alive. I had to purchase water myself for my ground, from my family. It was astronomical. It doesn't pay to farm with that water, but I have to have it to farm. So the passion overlies the financial responsibility. So that's a big deal. 2011, I met with some growers on the west side, talked about, I want to do an export ordinance. Everybody was against it. I said, why are you against the export ordinance? I mean, we're protecting farming in Kings County. Well, at that time, I realized there might be some water leaving the county at that time to supplement the loss of surface water supplies. I don't think that's Kings County's responsibility. I think Kings County's responsibility to the taxpayers is to promote farming in Kings County. We don't get revenue from Fresno County. We don't get revenue from Kern County. We don't get revenue from any other county other than Kings County. So it's important to preserve that. At no cost did I try to do this ordinance to stop agriculture in Kings County. And I find it odd that, we don't have a whole lot of farmers standing up here protecting their rights. And I think it's because, we don't have a big union of farmers that stick up for each other. So you don't want to go against one farmer trying to make a living for himself. And this kind of divides some of the farmers that are farming large amount of ground and small amounts of ground. So people will kind of stand back a little bit and hope it works out for themselves. But water's a big issue. We've had multiple conversations with DWR over the last 6-7 years when they started doing the Sigma deal. At no time do we want to take over any GSAs. I want the GSAs to come up with a plan that fits their own personal area. I know that where my ranch is at. Dennis Mills is my GSA member, and he's doing everything in his part to keep that water and keep the crops growing in that area. It's important, but I live in a good part of the community. I don't have access to sell my surface water. But as a 60-year-old farmer with 40-cent crops, if I was in an area I could sell my groundwater, I would sell my groundwater. And I go, we need to take that temptation away. It's too bad it has to be this way. All we have to do is get the water from the Delta flowing to the San Luis Reservoir and take care of those farmers on the west side, and we'd be fine. We wouldn't have this problem today. But the environmentalists are taking over and they're ruining us. And we're just trying to, the last straw, we're trying to protect our county here. It's important to do that. That's my job at the Board of Supervisors, protect the taxpayers of the county. And that's why I did this. It's been very difficult. I want to thank Sean Cash for coming up with all the ordinances that we found. We took about probably 4 or 5 ordinances that no export ordinance in all the state of California, kind of put this one together. This will be a working document. We'll take all your comments into consideration when we formulate it. Whether it's going to be a water commission or the Water Resource Oversight Committee, it doesn't matter to me as long as we have some feedback back from the community or back from the experts on what works and what doesn't work. It's a big task. I mean, we started with the GSAs. I think it was voted on in 2016 or 17. By 2018, it started coming together, people with comments. I've been going to the greater Cuyo GSA meetings, and these people, they had a secret meeting before a meeting, and they were pissed off that they wanted to hang Dennis Mills, basically, And I said, well, just compare your comments today is what you've had comments back when the GSPs came out. We don't have any comments. So you didn't even stick up for your own rights back at the time when you could have stuck up for yourself. You could have been part of the solution, not part of the problem. And I go, I just think that no one wants to stand up for themselves at this time. And it's putting each of us against each other. And it's a shame. I think this export ordinance just protects the County of Kings. And I look forward to making it work. And I had a hard time. We allow water to move across county line 10 miles from point of extraction. So that's a pretty good that's a long ways into another county from one county. If you go along Excelsior Avenue, water doesn't go towards Fresno. It goes from Fresno down to King. So it's probably not a big problem. But when you get down to Kern County line, there's not a lot of farming happening, but there's water being moved from quite a ways away to get out towards the edge of the county. So we'll let the GSAs determine what they need help with, and we'll be a backstop for them with the export ordinance. And if there's no further questions, or I'll just turn it over I'm sure Supervisor Peterson has questions or comments. Thank you.
No questions?
Just, it's unfortunate. We talked about that earlier, what's occurred. But, as a county supervisor, we hear it both ways, right? We hear everybody here today that's talking about, this doesn't occur. But in the community, we get cornered in a grocery store and tell us how it's occurring and how bad it is. And so you have a lot of unknown. Nobody knows exactly what's occurring or how much is or isn't leaving. And, from the standpoint of the responsibility here today, I'm not a farmer anymore. That's just the way it is because of the nail in the coffin was a water issue and farming in a district called Last Chance that truly is kind of one of the last chance to get, water to a crop and all that is unfortunate. And, but at the end of the day, for me, when I look at, somebody talked today about, the impacts and, you look at what Corcoran had to do. They had to institute a 218 process to rebuild a flood border, and every person in the community paid for that, as well as others in the community. And so, what's Kings County known for? Well, we have the highest subsidence rates in the state. And, we're a big target. We hear it all the time. We've been approached by, state leaders and we push back with every ounce, of information that we have. But this is one area where we don't have that information. And, I'm not gonna, paint this with sugar because it's gonna be difficult to find that information. But I think for this county, it's important to have that information. It's important to know where that water's going and why. And, I can't, as a leader in this community, put my head in the sand and say, I don't know. I need to know. I need to know for every resident of this county. And so it's not to attack, an agricultural industry or to change direction of flows of water, but it's the ultimate responsibility of this board to look at these issues and to have those answers. And so with that, that's all the comments I have, Mr. Chairman.
Good, thank you. Any other comments? Supervisor Valley?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As long as you've had this Verboen up for discussion, I guess I was naive at the point to where I would assumed all the farmers in Kings County would agree with the concept, right? We're going to protect our water.
Can't get two farmers to agree unless they're making fun of another farmer.
And I came from it from the timing of it. I mean, I remember, as I mentioned earlier, back in 2009, when we were in that last very bad drought, I was very active with the California Latino Water Coalition. From my hometown farmer, Eric Hansen, who's here right now. He was a former chair of the California Water Alliance. One day in 2009, going back to Governor Schwarzenegger, we were on the steps again of the Capitol with Governor Schwarzenegger, Water Coalition, Water Alliance, farmers who bust up loads of farm workers. We all left at 4:30 in the morning. We're there. It's hot as hell. It's about 104 degrees. We're right there holding this press conference, and we're talking about the fight for water, and we need our fair share of water. And we felt good about it, especially with Governor Schwarzenegger there fighting with us. As soon as the press conference was over, all our phones lit up. $77 million worth of water sold out of our area, San Joaquin Valley, sold out to Southern California. And it's like those senators and assembly members up there that the majority are from the Bay Area, San Diego, LA, we know that. You can see them laughing at us. Like, look at these knuckleheads here saying they have no water, and then someone's selling it. And it's major news. It was to the point of national level because of the drought. And so that wasn't a fun ride home, And so coming from just that experience and seeing where we're at today, that's the concept that I'm supportive of. Going back to OSL, the experience, not only myself being a Corcoran resident, but to the people that I represent in Corcoran, going back to the levee a few years ago, where because of the ground subsidence, this levee that protects the city of Corcoran had sunk 2 feet. We're told, hey, look, this is emergency. There's a lot of snow in the mountains this year. The city of Corcoran has a high level of flood, right? A lot of people went and bought flood insurance for their homes in Corcoran that year, and it was very expensive. And it was a lot of anxiety in the community. We had a huge town hall. It was packed. It was the biggest town hall. People came in. They were worried that their homes were going to be flooded. There was rumors there'd be 6 feet of water in Corcoran. So to raise the levee up by 2 feet, it was a $12 million bill. And it was, and Corcoran residents were told, we're going to pay for this through our property taxes. Well, we went to work, Sue Peterson, Chef Robinson, we went to Sacramento. We sat there, we met with Department of Corrections, said, you have 2 prisons in Corcoran. Is it going to be cheaper for you to logistically move all those inmates around the state of California, or can you pay for half this $12 million tab? They very quickly said, we'll pay for, I think they paid $5 to 6 million of it. Then it got divvied out to ag, it got divvied out to school district, but ultimately about $3 million on the backs of Corcoran homeowners who saw their property taxes increase upwards of $364 a month. So, you have elderly folks who is see Peterson Mansion corner you in the supermarket and see you uptown and say, what the hell is going on? And we bear the brunt of it. So for anyone who doesn't think that we shouldn't have a voice or a position on this, I'm here to say that we absolutely do have not only a voice and a position we should have, but also a direct responsibility to that. So that being said, I'm always, as I mentioned earlier, I'm glad to see there's people here in the room and at the table and willing to have the discussion. And so for anyone who thinks, again, that this is a rush movement to have on the agenda and they're caught off guard, I'm sorry you feel that way. By no means has that occurred here today. If it did, historically, I'm the first one to speak up to it because the agenda comes out on a Friday. And there's been a lot of times where we had high-level votes on Tuesday. And if it's a hot button item, people are concerned about that. That's not the case this time. That being said, just like the former action we took to table, to have the conversation, if that's where this is going today as well, to have the conversation on how the ordinance could be better, I would be supportive of that as well. But also, if we're going to take action today, I just want people to know that this is something that has been studied, has been taken a lot of time on here, and there's been a lot of work to get here today. And as electeds, we've grown through this, and there's been some hard times through these droughts. And the last thing I want to say is I'm going back to 2009 and that first fight for water and being all in. And then coming back to this new drought, it was hard for me to get back in and say 10 years later, whoa, we got to go to Sacramento. We got to fight for water. You know what? Because honestly, I'm tired of that. I'm tired of hearing any candidate who runs for office saying, vote me in and I will fight for water. Okay, well, there's been a lot of elections between that time. Members of Congress, senators, assembly, and guess what? Ain't a damn thing changed. All right. Now, when I campaigned in 08, I said, I'm going to fight for water. And to me, a yes vote on this ordinance here is me keeping my promise to the people who elected me, because that's a fight for water. And hard decisions, doing the right thing isn't always the easiest thing to do. Okay. And so please know whatever happens today, I think a lot of time and thought has been put into this. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Additional questions or comments? Matthew, you want to close?
Sure. Just wanted to, for the record, we heard a lot about, this being rushed or people didn't have time to review or whatnot. I just wanted to, for the record, state that this public hearing was published in the Hanford Sentinel at least 10 days before this morning's hearing. And within that public hearing, I explicitly stated, if anybody wishes to have a digital copy of the ordinance, please feel free, email me. I'll send you one. I've had a couple of people reach out and do so. I've dispersed it that way. We also within that same notice, hey, if you want to review a copy of that, please come here. We have copies for you to review. So just want to put that out there. Give everybody a opportunity to review this before, yesterday or whatever. So.
Thank you, Matthew. Sean, you're at the,
Yeah.
please introduce yourself and then continue with your remarks.
Sean Cash, Deputy County Counsel. I was heavily involved in the formulation of the ordinance, as Supervisor Boone mentioned earlier.
So it's your fault.
Just following orders, sir.
Okay.
I just, and Supervisor Valley actually brought up or segued a little bit into what I wanted to just clarify. With the action the board took a little while ago regarding tabling the dissolution of the Water Commission and the formation of the Water Resources Oversight Commission, there would be a hypothetical gap in this ordinance because that new commission was supposed to be the permitting body for the new ordinance. I wanted to make sure that it was pointed out that in the ordinance, it is clarified that until that new permitting body is created, the Kings County Planning Commission is in position to fill that role according to the ordinance. So in case there was any question about that gap, it has been accounted for.
Very good. Thank you. And Robbie Jones is very appreciative of that.
Yeah, he's right behind me.
Exactly.
Mr.
If there's no question or comments, I'll just make one more quick comment. You know, Kings County resources or revenue is created basically from ag. I think we got $2.3 billion created from ag in Kings County, and it's all because of the water. The sheriff's budget is one of the biggest budgets of the county. He depends on that money coming into the county. We need to protect that at all costs, and that's part of the reason why we have this ordinance today, because we don't get any revenue from other counties that use our water. So we'll protect our groundwater at all costs from here on out. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve as discussed and waive the reading.
Mr. Chairman, can I make another comment? 20 seconds, going in.
I'll time it. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, because it sounds like there's a hold up on the second as well. But looking at my notes, I did miss something I want to say, and I said this up here years ago when it happened. But back in 2009, 2010, a lot of us went to a water panel in the city of Los Angeles, and as we sat there, I remember I was on the panel, and there was a former senator from LA that was on the water panel. She opened up. Looking at the audience, she's assuming it's just a room full of people from Los Angeles. She opened up by saying, when I was in the state Senate and when it came time for budget, major votes, we played with those legislators from the San Joaquin Valley, and we played with them with water. Water was a weapon, a political weapon is the way she put it. And she said that publicly. And so when it was my turn to speak and I got introduced and I said I was from Kings County, and that hearing that was offensive, right? That and my experiences in the Capitol building goes back to what my two colleagues said earlier, that they're fighting against our very small band of senators and assembly members in Sacramento. And it would be, I never want to see that fight here within Kings County amongst ourselves, because it's, you know, just, for example, they're giving us crumbs. If you want to look at that off their table, their big table, they throw us crumbs, and then we're fighting for crumbs when we do need to be united to help have a bigger voice up there together.
Good, thank you. Further discussion?
I need a second.
Yeah, second.
Moved by Verboen, seconded by Peterson. Thank you very much. Discussion? Okay, no discussion. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Joe Nevs,
No.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboen,
Yes.
Craig Peterson,
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
The ordinance moves forward 3-2. 3 in favor, 2 against. And so with that, any other closing comments?
Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and thanks for everybody being here today. You can take this in one way. You can take this as a divisive act, or you can take this as an opportunity to come together. We've said from the start that this is a working document, that we want to support all of you. And I think this provides a momentum to bring everyone together to create a working document that works. And, you know, I won't be in this seat. Supervisor Rusty Robinson isn't here today. He's heard this as well. And I think I know his heart, and I think he'll do the right thing. And I appreciate you know, it's difficult, but it is what it is. So thank you.
Very good, thank you. We'll now move to board member announcements or reports on their own initiative. Board members can make brief announcements or reports on their own activities. And so with that, we'll give it a minute to let people that want to leave go ahead and leave, so it'll be a little quieter. Thanks, Coach. With that, Supervisor Peterson, you want to talk about board member announcements?
Nothing other than ate some turkey and you know, with respect to RSV and some of those other things, my grandson attends a local daycare, and I can tell you it's real. There's kids that have it in our community, and so just encourage everybody to stay healthy. And there's a lot of crap floating around right now. I've had some of it, and everyone else around me has had some of it. So just encourage everyone to take care. Thank you.
Yeah, keep it. Don't spread it around.
Right.
Supervisor Verboen.
I traveled to Disneyland, the happiest place on earth, for our conference. Did not go into the park, business only. We had our very first water forum meeting with CSAC. We tried it back and looked at the records back in 2011, I believe. And it got shut down by the larger counties that actually want to come take our water, which is why we did the ordinance today, which we had a 5-0 vote, but I don't know, something must have changed between two of the board members here. But we had a panel of experts, actually people that caused most of the water problem. We were able to ask them questions on how to bridge the divide between lack of water and pumping our groundwater. So it was very well attended, probably one of the largest forums we had at CSAC ever. People went there and, tried to learn, and we got a lot of accolades throughout the week from our comments that we made during that meeting. It's very well attended, like I said, and that just pass it on to Supervisor Valley.
Yeah, I just want, I'll take the time just to say this, that obviously we all have the ability to vote any way we want. And, we talked about this action this action we just took on water to hopefully not be divisive, but yet the board was divisive. And if I was going to vote no on it, I would have spoke to at least try to get the other board members to understand where my opposition was coming from, what could be better. And I wish that would have occurred today. And I don't say that to insult any of my colleagues. I'm saying it for the betterment of decision-making, that I think with the people who took the time to come here today, if it was going to be a no vote, speak up about it. Speak up about it so we could learn that 3-2 vote on something is important. We just took right now. That's going to ring. That's going to ring for a long time to come. Thank you.
Thanks. Supervisor Fagundes.
Well, I've been to a number of office parties this last week, couple of weeks, in fact. And then on Saturday, I went to, or Sunday, I went to Lemoore for the tree raising. That had there quite a lot of people there with the little deals around there. And of course, I got there kind of late too. And then we had the parade here in Hanford, which there was a lot of people participating in that, a lot of people on the streets. Of course, you had the skating wing down there. I was waiting for Supervisor Boone to see him skating, but he didn't.
No. My skating days are over.
And then KCAO, we had a meeting last Wednesday, and then Thursday was Commission on Aging. And then St. John's Society had a fundraiser, fish dinner, and that was fill me up for the rest of the week. I had to cut back on Thanksgiving.
Darn.
Yes.
I hate when that happens.
Well, I didn't do that purposely.
Oh, okay.
I had a little help.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. For me, I just want to thank everyone that participated in the Battle of the Badges. It was a three-day event this year. And I think I haven't heard the total numbers. I think somewhere around 180 units were delivered to the Central California Blood Center, and a lot of prizes handed out. So thank you, everyone that participated in the blood drive or received a gift or worked on it throughout the season. The end of the season, Parks and Grounds Barbecue was a great event. Get together the last few years just to kind of celebrate that and with staff. And it was a very good event. Lemoore High School continues to play football and they'll be traveling to Oakland on Friday. And so good luck to that. We haven't met since Veterans Day. Veterans Day was a very active day. We're starting out at the tank and they were talking about military installations in different campaigns, as well as the festival downtown and then the Veterans Day Parade in Lemoore that I think the mayor might have done something to a fire engine. I'm not sure. I haven't heard about that, but kind of wondering. Just a rumor. And then on Sunday, the train display in Tulare, the Ag Center had a model train set up as well as vendors, and that part of demographics is just pretty amazing. A lot of stuff going on there. The South Fork Kings, we got together and did a preliminary manager interview. Two very good applicants that we continue to screen, and the final interviews will take place on the 12th. Retirement to Dan Luttrell. Dan has been a good member, a great member of the law enforcement community, and we certainly hate to see him go, but I'm sure he'll be back in some role in the future. The Kings Federal Credit Union had a meeting. We talked about part of the audits. The Kings Tulare Master Plan for Aging, we continue to meet and talk about. This past month was talking about nutrition and how to shore up the nutrition sites as well as food pantries for seniors. Calviva Finance and Health Authority had a meeting. We received the audit report for that. It continues to move forward. We also launched a YouTube channel to be able to connect with members. We do have a bunch of VHS tapes and a bunch of CDs that I don't know. I don't think anybody has machines to even play them anymore. So I think the YouTube channel is probably going to be a good way to expand out and inform members. We continue to go just like with the health department, equity officers, and so that will be added to the role of officers in that organization and dealing with equity of the way health insurance is divvied up in different demographics. The governor convened a homelessness committee a couple of Fridays and was really concerned that the state of California spent $15 billion and only had 2% reduction in housing the homeless population. I think they've since kind of backed off on that, but it was an interesting discussion on how the governor conducts business and is generally concerned about homelessness. But I think it's a much greater problem in California than it is in some other areas. Kicked off the Santa season at the Seroptimus Festival of Trees, 650 guests, 45 winners. So as you can imagine, there were 605 people that weren't real happy at that holiday season kickoff. But it was a great meal, a great time to kick off the Christmas season, even though it was before Thanksgiving. Cabrillo Club had their officer installation with a Thanksgiving Day meal and welcomed in the 2023 officer team. Kings County homeless meeting was canceled due to lack of a quorum. And on a personal note, I did donate blood at the Central California Blood Center and made that 120 unit. And then when you do the math, that's 15 gallons. And I'm still over 300 pounds. And I can't figure out where all that fluid goes. And yet it doesn't seem to take anything off my thighs. So I will work on that a little bit too. Mr. Hill, you want to talk about board correspondence, upcoming events, and future agenda items?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. For board correspondence, your board received 12 different letters regarding the water items announced today, so I won't belabor those and announce them again. You also received a letter dated November 9th regarding a vacancy in the Tulare Lake Drainage District, a letter dated November 22nd from the U.S. Census Bureau regarding participation in the 2022 Census of Governments. Letter dated November 23rd from the Westlands Water District regarding announcement of general manager's retirement, and notification from the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board meeting notice and agenda for December 8th and 9th. For upcoming events, the Downtown Lemoore Christmas Parade will take place on Sunday, December 3rd at 6 p.m. Downtown Lemoore will be filled with lights, music, and holiday cheer, and Christmas in Toyland visits the community. The Hanford Chamber of Commerce and Kings County United Way will be hosting a Christmas charity event at the Hanford Civic Center on December 1st at 6 p.m. Tickets are $50 and include dinner and entertainment. Kings County Department of Child Support Services is having their annual slipper sock drive to donate to senior citizens in Kings County. Donations of any slipper sock and any kind of skid-proof bottom and a one-size-fits-all can be dropped off at various locations, including Child Support Services located at 317 West 7th Street, Suite 201 in Hanford. The deadline for donations is December 16th. The Rock and Rudolph Run will take place in Hanford at 400 North Downey Street on December 18th at 8 a.m. The 2-mile walk run will, and there's also a costume event. Proceeds will support Hanford's Police Activities Leagues. For upcoming agenda items, administration has 2 items: consideration for the Public Safety Realignment and Post-Release Community Supervision 2022 Plan, and consideration for the American Rescue Plan Act Cemetery District Agreements. Behavioral Health has 3 items: consideration to approve the addition of 1 program specialist, agreements for 211 and HMIS services within Kings United Way, and consideration for approval of agreement for participation in the state hospital program with California Mental Health Services Authority. Community Development has considerations for updates to the Kings County First-Time Homebuyer Program guidelines. The Department of Finance has 2 items: consideration to approve delegation of investment authority to the Director of Finance, and consideration regarding the Director of Finance's 2023 Statement of Investment Policy. Elections has consideration regarding the certified statement of votes for the November 8th general election. Fire has consideration for the addition of an office assistant position. IT has consideration regarding the approval of Dell server purchase. Public Health has the COVID-19 update. Not sure that's correct because we just had that today. We'll take a look at that. Public Work has 2 items: consideration regarding chip rock purchase for county road projects, and consideration regarding Kings County Fire Department Fire Station 4 site assessment. And then lastly, I'd just like to add that at the CSAC event, the county did win one of the CSAC Challenge Awards for the early access and stabilization services that are being done in partnership with the jail and with the state. It's the first in, it's the first in the state, excuse me. And then also Mr. Boyette did receive his executive committee training certificate at that event.
Did he pass the test?
There was no test.
No test?
Does that come with a raise?
Yeah, December 26th.
Any questions for Mr. Hill?
One quick question.
Yes.
And I know we have a new director on board as well, but when will we get an update on how much money has been invested in each district for the small business grant? And that way the board can assess and strategize and make sure that we're getting this money out.
We have a couple options. We can send that to you by email today. Then also, if you'd like, given the board consensus, we can bring that back as an item as well.
Okay.
Whichever you choose.
Maybe if we bring it back as a public item, it's a opportunity to promote awareness and maybe get something out of that in the public eye and start the conversation again.
Yeah, we'll bring that back on the next agenda.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you. The board will now move into closed session to take up 2 items. First item is a workers' comp case. Second item is conference with the real property negotiator, Ed Hill, regarding 1444 West Lacey Boulevard. And then out of closed session, the board will adjourn and reconvene on Tuesday, December 6th. I also want to draw your attention to the California Public Finance Authority meeting that is scheduled for 11 o'clock, will now be held at 11:45 or whenever we can switch over. Oh, and she's ready right now. So we'll close this off and move over. So
And then go to close.
you want to take a, yeah. You want to take a break? Anybody needs to take a few minutes?
Okay.
Yep.
And I'm not sure what he said.
I don't know.